Hi everybody, welcome back to the Claremont Classic Garage. The weather's starting to change and I'm once in a while seeking refuge in the Claremont Classic Garage basement. So here's what we're going to be doing. It's that model car time of year again. And what we've got on the go here is this Monogram 70 Superbird. I've had this thing for years and 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 could never figure out what I wanted to do with it. But now I have come up with a battle plan, and we're gonna move ahead. I started mucking with this thing a long time ago. I painted a few bits and pieces. The only thing I'm hoping is that I somehow have managed to bust one end of that leaf spring off. Hopefully a little bit is in the box there somewhere. If not, I think I've got another old Monogram B body in my scrap pile somewhere. I got to do some scrounging around on the interwebs and find out how these Dana 60 rear ends were detailed out. Probably just needs a little white band around one tube to make it look neat. And anyway, I'm going to show you how to detail out this to make it look as close as it could to how it kind of left the factory. So we've got our engine put together and we shot a coat of primer on it so we can better judge what we've got here. What we have to deal with, there's a nasty seam from the front of the oil pan all the way down back to the back of the transmission. So we're going to put some filler in there and we're going to get that cleaned up because that looks terrible. We're going to use this stuff here. The only reason we're using this stuff is, well, because we have it. I don't know if you can even get this anymore. This stuff is probably as old as it can get. But anyway, you could put this stuff on with a popsicle stick or one of these things that oil painters use. I'll probably use just the tip of this, and you can get it worked right into those gaps. And then we'll let it harden up and sand it and see what we've got. There we go. And the stuff will probably shrink into there as it dries, so we may have to give it another coat. But that's a good start. And all the while that we're working on this other stuff, we're going to be working the body. The bodies on these model cars often need a lot more work than it looks like they need before you start painting them. The mold is made of several pieces, and they put it all together so that the breaks in the mold are hidden as well as they can hide them, but they got to be somewhere. So this one you can see here, there was one that went right across the top of this quarter panel, and we've kind of worked and dressed that down. And then it went there, and then it went down along the top here, and we've dressed that down. It also came across the front of the door and went down there. And then all around the edges will also be edges of the mold, and you have to dress down the flash and kind of just take the sharpness off of corners that you think should not be sharp. Some of them need to be sharp. It depends how the car was made, you know. I could see some, there's still a little bit across the top of this rad support here we'll have to deal with. And you can use all kinds of stuff. Hobby knife, an emery file, a nail file, all kinds of different ways you can do it. It just boils down to how you're comfortable doing it. So we're going to keep working this thing, and then the very last thing we'll do is we'll just scuff it lightly with some 1000 grit wet paper before we put it in primer. And then I'll try to show you a few tricks that you can do to sharpen up the detail on these old kits without breaking the bank or requiring a whole ton of skill. Just stuff you can do with junk you've got laying around already. But anyway, we're going to keep working on this body. Another thing you'll see guys do is they'll scribe the panel lines. Make them just a little bit more deeper so they look a little more convincing. You have to be really careful because it's easy to lose a little control of your tool. It goes out here and it puts a big scratch in the body that you then have to spend a whole bunch of time filling and fixing. We don't want that. So how I do it, if I decide to do it, I use a nice sharp number 11 blade backwards, and you go along and you just do it lightly and very carefully, and you'll see the plastic start curling up out of there, And that means you're removing plastic ever so gently. This, by the way, is the same way you do it if you want to make opening doors, right? You would just keep lightly going like this until you actually cut the door from the vehicle, and then you could make your hinges and do whatever you want. I've never really done that. I can never, ever get it to look right. It's a little more advanced skill than I have, I guess. But anyway, scribing the panels is something you can do if you'd like. So here we go. We've got a little bucket here with some warm water with a dab of dish soap in it. And I use an eraser with a piece of 1500 wet or dry wrapped around it to just scuff this thing up so that the primer will get a good bite into it. Now, this body has a molded in vinyl top. We don't want to sand on that really too much because we don't want to remove any of that detail of the vinyl top, that texture, right? So it's hard to see, but really all we've done, we haven't really sanded it. We've just kind of knocked the gloss off the plastic. So the primer's got something good to bite into, you know. And we should have a good result with this. Now here's something that's terrible. Number one, the engine compartment on this kit is terrible. This doesn't look anything at all like a B-body Mopar. Aside from the fact that the battery is in relatively the approximate place it should be, everything else is wrong. It's just terrible. Like this, they've got a coolant reservoir. Probably the car that they used to make the tool for this kit, the guy had added an aftermarket coolant reservoir to it, so it got included in the kit. This here, I have no idea what in the world that even is. That, I guess, is supposed to be the washer fluid jug. But there's the shock towers that B-body Mopars have. Not there. It's just, it's pretty bad. Considering the rest of the kit, really, detail-wise, isn't too horrible. But anyway, what I want to try and do is something I've never done before, but I'm going to try on this one. I don't like the look of this. So what we're going to do, these cars had kind of undercoating applied to the inner areas of the wheel wells after they were painted. So what we're going to do is we're going to use some good old-fashioned masking tape here and try to cover up all of this crap and give it a little bit of texture that'll look kind of like undercoating when we're done. This is something, I plan to show this in an out-of-the-box category, and I'm not sure what they'll think of me using masking tape as filler, but I don't know. Every contest has different rules, its own rules. And this one that I plan to take this one to is not until months from now. And there isn't even any rules posted. So I don't care. I'm going to do it. If it's ineligible, it's ineligible. I don't care. At least it'll look good to me. There we go. That, to me, looks better than that. We'll do the other side now. I just kind of get it in there and slowly, I take my time, work it in with a popsicle stick and trim it around with a sharp X-Acto knife, and I think it looks pretty good. I'm not sure how long it'll stay there. It might crumple up and fall off next week, but it's, I mean, at least it's good Scotch brand tape. It should hang in there for a while. I'm not sure why they do this. They leave that open, and they leave this, it looks terrible. So, we're going to do some more masking tape trickery and get this stuff closed up. It looks kind of goofy now, but it'll look a lot better once it's all cleaned up and painted. So here's where we're at. I've started detailing out the tires and the wheels. We put the tires on the drill and just gave them a light scuff. They're car tires, right? Not race car tires, so we don't want to beat them up too much. So did that, and got the nerve-wracking job of the white letters done. And I used something I've never used before. One of these jelly roll pens, a 0.5, which means 0.5 millimeter tip, and I got it at Michael's for $2.99. Worked pretty well. And I've started detailing out our Magnum 500 wheels. I think the inlay is going to need a second coat of black, and then we'll see what we do about the slots. I might drop some India ink in them or something. We've got pretty much everything now in primer. Most of these, we'll call them the bolt-on panels, have been scuffed up, ready for paint. The actual body, I just finished. I brushed on a coat of good old Testors 1149 flat black on the inside of it, just for now, for a start. And then what we'll do, first we'll shoot semi-gloss black on the vinyl top. And then once that's set up for a while, we'll tape up the top and shoot the body alpine white. We've got the chassis here ready to go. It's kind of going to be sort of put together when it gets painted, because these Mopars, how they built them, it's a unitized car, right? So the car was basically together when it went in the paint booth. So they were dipped in gray primer. That's the first coat. And then as the car was painted, you'd get a bunch of overspray kind of going in this direction all over the bottom of the car. And then once that was done, then they undercoat the wheel wells and up in the front inner fenders here. So we'll have to do that with the airbrush once the car is painted. It should be pretty fun. And I'm sure there are peculiarities to the Superbird because they were more assembled by hand, like some of it, you know. I also did a rattle can semi-gloss black job on the interior. These cars were mostly vinyl interior, so semi-gloss black out of a rattle can usually looks pretty good on them. We'll do some work on the carpet and that to make it look a little more believable. Okay, here we go. We got our rattle can semi-gloss black on the top for our vinyl top. It's looking pretty good. Something to note, all Superbirds had a vinyl top because of the debauchery they had to do around the back window here. The normal Roadrunner had kind of a concave back window. And of course, the Superbird for airflow has got a convex back window. So they added in this fiberglass plug in the back of the car. You can see 1, 2, 3. These are all pieces that they added to the body. And to cover up where they did all this surgery here, they decided it was just easier to put a vinyl top on it than to finish it all up and paint it like they did on the 69 Daytonas and Charger 500s. I think the Charger 500s had the trick back window too. Correct me if I'm wrong. We also shot some orange. Our engine's looking pretty sporty. Now we're going to tackle this blob here, which is our front suspension and steering. When these cars came down the assembly line, there would have been all different finishes on all these parts. For instance, this here, the K-member, would have been sprayed with a semi-gloss black. The torsion bars were dipped in a semi-gloss black. All these steering linkage parts were just bare natural steel. And the lower control arms, they were bare steel, but they were dipped in what they called cosmoline, which is kind of a goldish, yellowish, waxy guck. We're gonna see if we can. We could try and replicate that a little bit. And then for all these other parts, they would all come from different places, so they would all be slightly different degrees of semi-gloss black, right? So what we'll do is we'll kind of fiddle around with our collection of paints and see if we can vary the amount of semi-gloss on some of these things to give it a little life. We're starting to detail out the engine. I've got the exhaust manifolds here. They're not really accurate, but as to what would be on this engine, but that's what it came with, so that's what we're using. The back of them is really flat, and it gives a sharp edge on the back side of that. So we're going to use our hobby knife and kind of round off the back side of it to at least make them look a little more believable. And that's about all we can do with these. So hopefully that's starting to look a little more believable. We've added some little details here and there. Once we're done with the overspray and everything, the body color overspray, we'll start assembling some of this stuff. We have to paint the fuel tank, and then we can do a little dry brushing, give it a bit of a wash, and it should look pretty decent. So here I've decanted some of my Alpine white paint out of the rattle can, and we're going to load it in the airbrush and shoot it nice and low, just on an angle about like that. That's how it would have been done when they were painting the rockers and stuff on the car. And then we'll go across the back, because it would have been painted with no bumper on it. They would have got the rear bulkhead and everything. We're going to shoot some all in around these inner fenders and the front. And then I'm going to flip it over, and I'm just going to spray the tops of the fenders where the air vents go. And I'm going to spray the back side of the air vents, because I think I'm going to put those on before I actually shoot the body. They're just tiny, tiny little parts, and I think that'll make it easier. Alrighty, there we go. That's pretty much how they would have looked. And now what we're going to do is I'm going to let that tack up, or dry. Let that dry, is what I mean. And then we're going to get some semi-gloss black in the airbrush and blow in the wheel wells. They would have shot some undercoating in there before they started putting the car together, just to numb down the sound of rocks, and pebbles and stuff coming up and hitting it. And then we'll decide how we're going to go about doing the fuel tank, if I'm going to tape it up and shoot it, or if I'll do my best trying to do it with the brush. Time will tell. Well, that's looking pretty darn good. What I do need to do is wait for that paint on the fuel tank to set up, and the fuel tank straps, I'll just kind of go and highlight them a little bit with a black Sharpie, just to give them a little definition from the rest of it, right? And then we can start doing just, I'm not going to go crazy on the bottom of it, but maybe just a tiny bit of dry brushing here and there to kind of, bring some of the detail out a little bit. And I forgot when I was spraying the rear wheel tubs to just catch the sides of the front rails up here, because they would have got some too when the front inners were done. Now we're going to do some dry brushing. And for those of you not familiar with that, what that is you get some paint, something that's kind of believable, right? So we'll stick with browns and stuff like that. But, you can use anything you want, whatever works for you. And you get some on a big brush, and you rub it on a rag till it hardly leaves any trace of paint at all. And then you just start slowly working over your model, and the paint bits of it will come off, and it'll highlight your high spots, and it'll really bring it to life. And then when we're done, we're going to spray a black wash onto it, which will highlight the low spots, and it'll really bring it into a kind of a three-dimensional look, And then just in case we've got something that's kind of close to the color of the bottom of it, just in case we think we get a little too carried away with the dry brushing, you could kind of dry brush it with this and cover up your mistakes. So we're going to go with this flat military brown to start, and we'll see what we can do. My brother, he is a master at this, way better at it than me. I muddle my way through it. So you get some, and you'll let me move the rag over here, right? So you can see there how it's coming on the rag. That's no good. That's too much. So you just keep going and going and going and going and going and going and going. See what that's doing to the rag there? That's kind of what we're going to be doing to the bottom of the car. You don't want to overdo it, right? You don't want to look like it's painted brown. You just want to slowly. And it'll just start, you can see there, it's just starting to catch on some of the high spots. Yeah, that's good. And there's no rule which way you have to go. You just make sure you get it all. And you just keep doing it over and over and over again with different colors, and you layer them one on top of each other. There's no, like I said, there's no hard or fast rule. You just kind of kind of go with what feels right, you know? You can see there how it's starting to bring up some of those highlights, you know? It really looks good. So there's our wash done. It's Vallejo Wash FX. It's acrylic, so it's water-based, which goes nice over this stuff because it doesn't melt the oil-based paint when it goes on. And the beauty of this stuff is if you don't like how it comes up, you just go over, get a little bit of dish soap and some water, and you can wash it off and start again. But it really, you can really see the detail on this thing now. And if we just kind of throw the parts at it here, or kind of slap it together, the bottom of our car actually looks like the bottom of a car. Really happy with that. Oh, and to put this stuff on, I thinned it 50-50 with Vallejo airbrush thinner, which you can also just use IPA. And we shot it with our airbrush, which we bought at Princess Auto for $19.99. It's literally a rip-off copy of my old Badger 350, which I was stuck looking for a part for, but I don't have to find it now because, well, this is the same thing. It works okay. I think this is going to be a dedicated wash brush. I'm just going to use this thing for washes and stuff. It seems to be good for that. I got a bunch of assembling done. We got the interior detailed out and put together. Not much of that, just kind of painting. The interior in these cars are pretty simple. Just pretty much everything black except some wood grain on the console, and there's no wood grain on the dash. You just kind of dry brush some silver over the gauges and stuff, and you're pretty much done in there. There's a little gray stripe on the door panels and the seats that was, it's hard to see here, rather annoying, but I did the best I could with it. As far as the paint on the body, I decanted a bunch out of the rattle can and tried shooting it with my airbrush, and it just wasn't going my way. So in a fit of frustration, I put the airbrush down and just grabbed the rattle can and went at it, and it turned out okay. It's kind of eggshelly here and there, and I've got a bit of a sag on this door, but we'll just let this thing sit and get hard for a couple of days, and then I'll start blocking on it and shooting clear and blocking and shooting clear, and we'll get it ship shape in no time. I hit it with the clear, and for this one, we're just using this Krylon out of the old rattle can. It seems to work pretty well. It's got a little texture to it, but that's okay. The paint now is kind of sealed and protected, and we can start sanding. We can block sand on this clear coat without worrying about, taking off too much color. So what we'll do is we'll let this get hard, and then I'm going to just touch up a couple of little edges here and there, and then we can get the bare metal foil going, and the decals. Not too many decals on this. It's just got those big Plymouth signs on the quarter panels and the little birds on the uprights for the wing. And then we'll detail out the engine compartment a little bit, and it should be a going concern. Well, there we go. We've got it decaled up. The decals weren't so great because they're old, right? It happens, but we'll work with them. I just didn't feel like I can get an aftermarket decal set for this kit, and maybe I should have ordered one before I started working on it. But once I get going, I just I don't want to wait. And besides, it's a challenge to work with what you've got, right? So, now, something I need to say is back when these kits were made, Monogram must have had some kind of licensing problem with Warner Brothers or whatever, because it should say Plymouth Superbird in a round circle there on the headlight door. There should be a little bird that goes there on the trunk lid, and there's Superbird decals with the Roadrunner with the crash helmet on the uprights of the wing. It doesn't have any of those, and these Monogram kits never did. So it is what it is. We'll be putting it together without them, I guess. So what I did, I went ahead, it's got one coat of clear on it, and once that clear set up, then I went around and did my bare metal foil on all the chrome. It's a little splotchy because, well, my bare metal foil is old and it comes off the sheet in tiny little pieces that you gotta kind of rub them all together into each other. Whatever it is, what it is, right? And I use the old Vallejo, is that how you say it? My black wash to do the door gaps. Probably what I should have done on this white car. They also offer one that's gray. I probably should have got the gray one for this white car. But anyway, that's what I had, so that's what we used. It still looks okay. It looks like a door, right? So now what we're gonna do is I gotta get this thing cleaned up, and I'm gonna get a coat of clear on it to seal the decals and all this bare metal foil and stuff. And then we're gonna start kind of blocking it out a little bit. And it's going to take a few coats of clear to get these decals looking a little bit better, if that's even possible. Whatever. We'll have a go at it. Well, we're gaining on it. In the end, I had to strip the decals off it. I just couldn't get them to look how I liked them looking. I had to do away with the black decals on the headlight doors too. I came up with something for that. You'll see that in a bit. Right now, I just finished. I kind of blocked out the clear a little bit. It's got a few coats on it. And I just used my old car wax and polishes and stuff to get it, to come to life. I've got the front and rear windows in. As you can see, I used just a little plastic cement on the pins here. And then the rest of the way around, they're done with white construction glue. That I find works best. It dries clear, doesn't make a mess. I'm going to pack a little bit more in here now that the first coat dried. Now I'm going to make a feeble attempt at making a headliner for this. So what we're going to do is we have to kind of fill up this area between the two windows. So first thing I've got is a hunk of model box. This is supposed to be out of the box, right? So a piece of model box, and we're going to glue that in there with white glue. And we'll probably have to add a second layer. So with that done, now I've got these strips of masking tape. It's just 3/4 inch masking tape, or maybe it's 1 inch, that I folded in half so it stuck to itself. And then I painted it with semi-gloss black. And now what we're going to do, so when you line them all up beside each other, it kind of looks like a pleated headliner, right? So what we're going to do now is one by one start cutting these things and fitting them in. And well, we'll see what it looks like. Maybe a gigantic fail, or it might look neat. Well, you can see here, it's starting to take shape. That looks relatively convincing, doesn't it? Well, we're getting there. What do you think? Well, there we go. That's all of it done. I think I have to go in there and touch up the edge though, because you can see the green of the tape on the edges of it, but that's okay. And I made a pair of sun visors for it. So here it is all together. I really like this one. I think it turned out okay, despite all our little issues we had with it. We managed to kind of think our way out of them to the best of our ability. I like it. I like it without the big Plymouth things on the quarter panels. I'm glad that actually didn't work out. Like I said before, I'm pretty sure the Plymouth things and the big bird decals came in the trunk of the car, and it was up to the buyer to decide if they wanted them on or not, and they would be installed at the dealership. Yeah, that's pretty good. Here's another little trick I'll share with you. This license plate was on the decal sheet, and just out of instinct, you'll throw it in the water and slide the decal off and stick it to the bumper. But what I do, then it just looks like a sticker on a bumper, right? What I do is I actually cut. I don't transfer the decal off the decal sheet. I cut around it so it's still stuck to the paper, and I glue it to the bumper. It just gives it that little bit of depth and makes it look a little more believable. You can see here the underneath of it. I think that worked out pretty well. There's our 440 engine. So despite all the issues we had with this thing, I had a good time. I learned a lot. It was frustrating at times, but like I said, we thought our way through it, and came out, I think, with a pretty decent looking finished product. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. I'd like to thank you as always for tuning into the Claremont Classic Garage. I've been in my basement now for over 3 weeks making models in the middle of January. I think it's time now to get back out into the shop. What do you think of that? And work on some big parts and get my hands dirty. Anyway, thanks again as always. I hope you'll come back and see us again next time. And until then, I'm Kevin saying so long for now.